We've got a few more speakers. My pleasure now to introduce a colleague of mine from the House of Lords, Lord King of West Bromwich, who is going to speak to us.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We remember last Saturday, we got about 400 residents of Camp Ashraf actually moved to Camp so-called Liberty, which I doubt very much how much liberty they are going to get there. And when they get there, they find that they were lied to, not only by Mr. Cobbler, but UNAMI and other people as well. This was quite obvious that a lot of people from this country, from lawyers, USA officials and British parliamentarians, asked the camp authority that they can go there on their own expense to see the conditions in the camp. Their calls were ignored. So it was quite obvious what conditions they were going to find. And I think that's exactly what happened. So the condition on the new side, as we all expected, were subhuman, but the resident of Ashraf, with mediation of President-elect Mrs. Rajabi, still compromised to move to that camp. And they came across all the bullying and deception all the way through. While the Iraqi government has already failed living up to the responsibilities with regard to Ashraf residents, we all remember the brutal attacks on 24/7, which imposed so many deaths on the people in Camp Ashraf. Mr. Cobbler and UNAMI have rushed to their aid through articles and biased statements, blaming the victims, the residents of Camp Ashraf, for delaying the process, contrary to their mandate, which is actually to protect them and protect the civil populations, which they failed to do. The UN are looking away when the rights of the refugees were trampled upon. The residents have now taken the first step and moved to Camp Liberty, conditions of which are totally contrary to the assertion that the new camp meets the humanitarian standards that UNHCR applies for refugees situation around the whole world. Since this is most basic rights and freedoms and dashed away, and so we face with two new definitions of moving people voluntarily and humanitarian standard, which is our once-that condition in the prisons. You must have seen the reports about the condition of Camp Liberty. When the residents arrived there, they found that even the technical reports that the camp meets the technical standards for refugees, living quarters were false and not deliberate, and they were deceived. Now the 400 residents of Ashraf are at Camp Liberty. The moment of truth has arrived for Mr. Cobbler and Iraqi government. The treatment of this first group of residents will be a measure of goodwill and a test not only for UNAMI but also for the Iraqi government. So far, there are no indications that would be given the confidence, since Mr. Cobbler has openly put the safety of the refugees in the hands of the killers and those who committed mass murder against them in July 2009 and on April the 8th, 2011. We are watching the situation very carefully and expect the following to be implemented at Camp Liberty without any reservation. Any less and any further violence, bloodshed against the residents will be the responsibility of the enemy and the international community. We in this meeting should expect the following to be granted by the UNO, USO, USA and EU. Since the Iraqi government can't be trusted in any way and there is no point repeating in statements that the responsibility for the protection lies on the Iraqi government. So I say it quite loud and clear from this podium, hoping that Mr. Cobbler and UNAMI in Iraq will hear it. These points must be respected. Firstly, the Iraqi police and Iraqi armed forces must be placed outside the new camp for the safety of the residents, especially the Muslim women living there. It should also be self-evident that presence of representative or agents of the Iranian regime inside or around Camp Liberty must be strictly stopped. Secondly, the residents must be permitted to take along their car and other vehicles and their movable property to Camp Liberty with no limitations. Thirdly, the UNHRC process must be started without further delay. I suggest the rest of the interviews for those who are still at Camp Ashraf be done right there or somewhere closer to Ashraf. It has been done before and it will not be difficult to do it again. Fourthly, the well-being and security of all the residents should be granted until their final transfer to third countries. Fifthly, the residents in Camp Liberty should have freedom of movement as well as unrestricted access to medical services, lawyers, family members, and journalists. From now on, I sincerely hope that the Office of UNAMI will stop compromising the legal rights of protected persons and asylum seekers recognized by UNHCR and instead attempt squaring protection of the residents and their safe passage to third country. Protection of the people of Ashraf is a humanitarian responsibility of the civilized society and the civilized world, and a test for our humanitarian safeguard, but it is also a politically correct thing to do if we are interested in peace and tranquility for the Middle East and for the world at large. It is also good for the people of Iran, who have demonstrated time and again that they deserve to live in freedom and democracy. And finally, I finish by repeating what Lord Corbett used to say: Iran will be free one day. I assure you that his parliamentary colleagues will continue that fight until Robin's dream of seeing Iranian people free is realized. Thank you.